Tonight on KOD Meets, a very special personality, a proud Ghanaian, and for that matter, a true black star. She is the brand ambassador for Vista Jets, and of course, Goodwill Ambassador for United Nations, in the orange economy. She owns the African Fashion Foundation, formerly called the African Fashion Fund, and she supported countless people in the creative industry. My very special guest on the show, we'll find out in no time, is Roberta Annan, only on KOD Meets. She's the definition of a true black star, my very great friend, the delectable, adorable, incredible Roberta Annan.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking good. Looking good as
trying
usual.
to be like you is not easy, man.
Ophelia Crossland.
Whoa, you're wearing something for my wife. Looking great.
Thank you.
How have you been?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited about this new decade.
I know, right?
Great things are in store.
And let me say a very big congratulations to you. It's
Thank
really
you.
started on a great note for you.
Yes.
I just found out that you've just been made the brand ambassador for Vista Jets.
Yes.
What does that entail?
Oh, so it's a private jet company. In fact, I've been working with them since 2013.
Okay.
And it's basically a company that owns, I think, almost 1,200 fleet of private jets. So they have brand new planes. They've been in the business for the past 10 years, but very quiet and understated and under the radar.
Right.
And I did an Africa tour for them in 2013 where we visited 13 cities in 11 days.
13 cities in 11
days on their Global 5000 new private jet by Bombardier.
I don't enjoy being in an aeroplane, but doing 13 what?
13 cities in 11 days.
How did you do that?
It was quite manic. We had a very heavy schedule. I mean, there were days where we spent like a day in 2 countries.
That's right.
So
I've gone through that before, years ago when we were doing Nescafe African Revelations. Yeah,
Yes.
like traveling within the Western Central African countries. It was crazy.
But the
I
good
couldn't
thing,
help myself.
the thing I love about VistaJet is they always have new planes.
Okay.
And every 5 years they renew the planes.
Right.
And this was an introduction to, I don't know if you know much about private jets, but
I've been on one.
a few. Okay. So
Not a few.
so this is like the Bombardier.
Okay.
And I believe
I know the Bombardier.
Bombardier
Yeah.
has the best private jet. So this was the Global 5000
Right.
series that they had just released. And I mean, it takes, within 10 minutes, you are up in about 40,000, feet up in the air. And it's you don't even feel like you are, in the air. You don't feel like you're flying. You're so comfortable. It feels like you're sitting right here. And the next thing you know, you're like in another city. So it's quite easy getting in and out. But we had like a very heavy schedule once we landed. It was a great experience.
What do you have to do for them as a brand ambassador?
So just get new business for them.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
And they chose someone from Ghana.
Well, there have been a few people. I believe they did a lot of business in Nigeria a few years ago. But I mean, I've been working with them for a while, and so I mean, by default, I'll be working with them.
And then last year was a great year for you as well. You were actually announced as the United Nations Goodwill Ambassador for the orange economy.
Yes, I like that. I like the fact that we're all on that orange economy.
I know.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of work in this sector. I would say since I left the UN, my time, my passion, my own personal investment has been in this space.
Right.
And I'm so glad that the UN recognized that, because it's, it encourages you to push further. I'm young. Most of the time when you talk about Goodwill Ambassadors, these are people that are celebrities that have been in business for years, so are very, very highly recognized globally. But I think the work that I have done in this space is something that they really wanted to recognize and wanted to push the agenda that I am pushing forward. So they made me, first it started as a supporter for the creative economy, and then that eventually graduated to a Goodwill Ambassadorship position, and it's been great. I mean, we've been doing a lot with them. I like the fact that it's UNEP, because UNEP has a strong focus on environment by default. It's the United Nations Environment Program. So everything that has to do with the environment is something that comes under their remit. But one thing that they recognized was fashion, which happens to be in the creative economy,
Yes, it is.
was the second largest polluter of the environment.
It is. I was telling you earlier
Yes.
about a documentary I saw on Ghana, second-hand clothes that I think Ghana imports a lot more second-hand clothes from England than any other country on the African continent. And it's really sad. I need to show you that documentary.
Yes, I need to watch
Yeah.
that. I mean, you talk about
Yeah.
it, and it's really a problem. I mean, this whole thing about fast fashion is
That's right.
becoming a huge problem globally. And I remember when I was
And I think the worst bit is what is rejected from England and other places are brought here.
yes,
You know, and especially now, about 70% of the things that are brought in are trash.
yeah. So it's rejects. Normally, store
Exactly.
rejects come here, and we are like fumbling all over the place to take store rejects. I'm telling you, it's a big problem. And you being a fashion designer, I'm sure you appreciate, you know, that the impact, that the negative impact
I
that
know.
it has.
I know, because I mean, the conversation is being to encourage people from within
Yes.
to patronize made in Ghana clothes.
Right.
But then again, people say, oh, well, the designers, the tailors in Ghana are very expensive. It's very affordable for you to go to Kantamanto or Abosu Kanya and get something that's already been worn.
Yes.
And it's as bad as people wearing underwear that people have thrown away.
I think people do wear underwear.
Yeah,
In
people
fact, they
wear
bring second-hand bras
underwear.
and underwear,
Yes,
which
exactly.
is a huge health problem.
Like
It's a health
second-hand
issue.
drawers.
Yes, and this is like a health issue, and we need to address it. And I think what the UNEP and other bodies are trying to do, and I like what Gucci has recently
Yeah.
done. Gucci has gone completely carbon neutral.
Yeah, they have.
And they are also like trying to get other CEOs to follow suit, which is a really great initiative.
Yeah.
And I'm very much in support of that. And that was one of the things that I highlighted, you know, as the Goodwill Ambassador. But one thing that we need to do is to start educating people, right? So that they understand that this whole thing about fast fashion doesn't actually help us. And bringing it back into the creative economy, you, Ophelia Cross, and all these amazing designers in Ghana need to be supported with the right infrastructure, investment, so that your businesses can grow.
We need that support.
We need to start thinking about putting money into pieces that would last longer. So you
right.
don't necessarily need to buy 5 t-shirts.
Yeah.
You can buy one good t-shirt. You know, and that will last for a few years, you know, if you take good care of
That's
it.
right.
And that's the dimension that we're talking about. And this is where we are looking to take businesses. It shouldn't always be about the, you know, I don't want to mention brands here. that
No,
are in
you
the
can't do
fast
that.
fashion space,
Yeah, but we know what they are
Right.
and who they represent.
Right, and it's
Yeah.
become a problem
It
because
is.
each time they're producing, you're polluting the environment. You're emitting carbon dioxide into the environment,
Right.
and this is what's causing all the global warming and all the issues that we're facing.
Someone says, so it's global warning. Yeah, it is a warning actually. Now,
I
there's
like
something
that.
else that I want to mention. You're the youngest person to have been inducted into the African Leadership Hall of Fame.
Right.
How did that happen?
Well, that was in 2016. I'll
How
tell
old
you.
were you then?
Hey, who are you? You don't ask a
Well,
woman.
hello.
I said
You are the youngest
2016.
person, so we want to know how old you were then.
And if we talk about 2016 and I tell you how old I am, you know how old I am now. No, I'm not going there. That's quite young.
Yes.
You know, I was in my early 30s.
Right.
Let's just put it that way. And it was like, again, you know, I've been working really hard. You know, thing that I've been doing is building an ecosystem and infrastructure. It's not visible.
Yeah.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
So it's not tangible. You don't see, okay, this is a building or this is something. It's about really supporting and building human capital. So my work has been in human capital development, it's infrastructure building,
Right.
ecosystem building, especially in areas that are not as popular. And I really like the fact that they encourage me to go further with, you know, my initiatives, because sometimes you can get a bit discouraged, you know, and the reason why they gave me this honor was right after the UN. I left UN in 2012.
Right.
I was working at the United Nations in New York as a resource mobilization officer, which is really a nice name for a fundraiser. And I did 4 years there, and I left to start my own business.
Right.
At that time, it was a small business. I set it up on Madison Avenue. I remember, quite expensive. I took a small office on Madison Avenue and 54th Street in New York
That's
City.
an expensive area.
Very expensive area. No one told me in 6 months that I could not. So I left. You know, I kind of left that office and
Yeah.
decided that I was going to come back to Africa with my son, who was a year old at that
Right.
time. And I was encouraged by the former president of Nigeria, President Obasanjo.
Great guy.
Great guy. He met me at the UN, and I was moving and shaking, and you know, like supporting, like, you know, their initiatives, and looking, also taking care of heads of state who were visiting during the UN General Assembly. And he gave me advice, like, young woman, you need to go back to Africa. There's so much that you can do when you're back on the continent.
He doesn't mince words.
No, he doesn't. So I was like, okay, that's quite interesting. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, I need to be back on the continent. And then I set up my business. But after 4 years of doing my own thing, I was then invited by a big UK multi-family office to join them, to become their Africa partner. And I think I was inducted because they had seen how I left my position, how I started, the kind of clients I had right after leaving the UN, and then shortly after that being invited by a very big group. They had quite a large, they were into wealth management and other things, but it was a big group that had about 13 billion assets under management, and they wanted somebody to help them spearhead the Africa strategy, and so they brought me in as a partner.
Wow.
And that was the year that I was inducted, because I believe that the committee thought that as a young African, I had achieved things, I had broken boundaries, I had gone into you know, sectors that were male dominated, and I was moving, you know, I was successful, and so they wanted to give me that honor, and that really just actually encouraged me to just move and just push harder. Still
ahead on the show, I want us to find out what her typical day is like, her highs and lows, and African Fashion Fund. What's the motivation? What has she done with us so far? Right here on KOD Meets. Don't move a muscle. This is KOD Meets with my very special guest, the beautiful Roberta Annan, who's, I mean, in my opinion, a true representation of who a black star ought to be. What keeps you going as a person?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, I'm very prayerful.
Okay, the God factor.
Yes, the God factor is very important, because as you can get so caught up in all the craziness of this world, but you know, something needs to keep you grounded, and you need to know that you're here for a purpose, and it's a duty. So this is my way of, you know, following the purpose that I have been given by God, and so that always brings me back. So when I always feel like, okay, things are, oh my God, I'm so, when you get this idea or thinking you're too big or you're becoming, you know, you look
like
at, I've arrived kind of thing, I've arrived. I quickly just go back to, you know, that keeps me grounded.
You pinch yourself.
I pinch myself. I'm like, Roberta, this is really not about you. Right. And especially when it also comes with serving other people and impacting the lives of other people, I always put people before me, and I always think about every decision I make, how that is going to impact the lives of others. And that to me is the God factor, because you know, if it's in the Bible, you love God and you have to love your neighbor as yourself. So if you have that, then I guess you're on the right track. So that's what, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. I make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes.
How can you be perfect?
Yeah, but the
Bible says if all have sinned.
Yes, we are all not perfect. You know, God is perfect, and you know, but we're also here for a purpose, and we have to understand that. So that's the God factor. I'll say the second factor is family. I come from a very modest family, and my mom, no matter how many awards you get, no matter how many times you're written off Forbes, no matter, you're still her daughter. You know, and she, mommy, are you cooking for me? You know, she always calls on me, mommy, do this for me, take me here, take me shopping. You know, she does not care if I'm speaking to President Obama on the phone. She will just walk in. and demand her things as a mother, and that keeps me in check. So, and then I have an older brother that I look up to, and you know, he also sees me as his younger sister and supports in every way that he can. And I have my son, you know, who looks up to me. He gets so proud when he sees me doing things and working hard. He's 8.
Whoa, that's a big one.
My son is bilingual, very intelligent, and will put you in your place.
Doesn't fall too far from the tree. Let's focus on African Fashion Fund, one of your babies. What motivated African Fashion Fund? I mean, countless people, including 1957 and Rhythms on the Runway, we've benefited from African Fashion Fund. But what motivated it, and exactly what you do in the orange space of our economy?
You know, the African Fashion Foundation now, because now there's IFAC, the fund, which is now being structured. So I needed to kind of make that kind of differentiation, that one is a foundation. And I'll tell you how that whole foundation, or what used to be the African Fashion Fund, started. It started while I was at the United Nations. I was approached by the late Franca Zozani, who was the editor-in-chief of Vogue Italia. Franca was setting up, she was doing a special issue in Vogue on Africa. And she came to my office and she said, listen, I want to do this magazine. Often Africa is portrayed in a very negative manner, and I want to do a magazine called Rebranding Africa that is going to shed light on the creativity on the continent. And I was very impressed and touched by that at the same time. So I said, okay, I'm going to volunteer for you, and I'm not charging anything, but I'm going to be the project developer of this, and I'm taking you first to my country. So in 2011, Franca and Roberto Cavalli came to Ghana, and that's when the whole thing started. So they met with creatives here. They did an entire issue. I don't know if you remember, this came out in 2012 May in Lomo Vogue, and it had Ban Ki-moon on the cover. Exactly. And after that magazine, you know, we did several trips. So she went to like about 6 countries in Africa, and basically interviewed heads of state, architects, scientists, musicians, fashion designers, you know, just basically anybody that is, I would say, a who's who on the continent, who matters was interviewed for this magazine, and it sold out in 2 weeks. And a lot of the magazines, I don't know if you know how Vogue works, everything has to be based on celebrity or what is in. So she took a risk, but it was very successful. So people started inquiring about African culture and identity and heritage. And so the next thing we did after that was we did a Ukes order for fashion designers, and we had 10 fashion designers online, sold out again in a couple of weeks. So there was a demand for African creativity. So I decided to set up African Fashion Fund then to basically address this. And Franca Zozani is a lifetime advisory board member, even though she passed on. And I nurtured that relationship. The first fellowship, I decided that I was going to address it in 2 ways. First, I wanted to create the opportunity for designers to showcase their work overseas. And I also wanted to focus on education and capacity building.
That's important.
Because I felt they needed to be educated and to understand what fashion design is, and not just the creativity.
Global trends, global standards.
Yes.
Exactly.
So that's what AFF started doing. And the first ever fellow we had was Kenneth Eze. Kenneth Eze just showed his work 2 days ago in Paris Fashion Week. I was super proud. I mean, Naomi Campbell walked his show. I mean, everybody was there at his show. And he was our first ever fellow. We placed him at LVMH in New York for 6 months.
I know how difficult it is to raise funds for people, but then again, you have a background doing that for the United Nations.
Exactly.
How do you raise funds for then African Fashion Fund?
Like I explained before, African Fashion Fund has been supported by my company since I set it up. I have never received external funding. Normally what happens is you will get some kind of you know, companies and things like that would promise you money, but it never comes through. So you always have to, you know, kind of pay pre-finance and, you know, support the brands, because they're also depending, their livelihoods are depending.
I mean, I know countless people, from fashion designers through to models, painters, everyone in this country, and we did the same when Ghana was bringing in people for the year of return. We came to you looking for money.
Yes.
Everyone comes to you for money. So I'm wondering, how do you do it?
You know, I've made it a point, and I'll tell you,
yes,
it sounds quite like fluff, but it's the reality. I'm really passionate about this, and I've put in quite a bit of investment into people. Like I said again, it's human capital development. And you see, I'll come back to even IFAC, which was then politically launched in 2018. Raising money for creatives is tough. You know, if you look at the trend of money,
is it worldwide or in this space?
In worldwide, but you know, Africa is tough, because the reason why it's tough is we lack the infrastructure, and we lack the success stories that have been commercialized. So you cannot pinpoint and say that X and Y private equity fund placed money in X and Y music production and made this. Now you're starting to see those trends, but it never existed. And money, I always say that, because I'm a fundraiser, I'm very creative about how I do things to make it make sense and appetizing for investors. So then the approach that we did was we had to create a blended finance approach, which had some technical assistance money, some DFIs money, some family office foundation money, because it would take us a while to get proper private equity type of institutional investors type of money for the creative industry. But we need to get in there and create that pipeline and opportunity and build those businesses so that others can then see it as an investable asset class. And that's what I've been doing.
When we come back, we want to find out from Roberta, how do we take the orange economy from where it is, especially right here in Ghana and the rest of Africa, to the next level, right here on KOD Meets. Don't move from us. Welcome back. This is KOD Meets with our very, very special guest for this evening, the beautiful Roberta Annan. The beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, let me ask you this, man. It's been an amazing journey for you thus far. And if you ask me, I think you've done incredibly well for yourself.
Thank you.
For your age. Thank
you.
There's something that you're very passionate about. You have this amazing thing that you do with Vogue Talents.
Yes. So the Vogue Talents for Africa competition that we launched.
You feel that?
I get
the
really
zeal,
excited.
the zeal.
I get really excited.
I know.
You know, it's like I said, nurturing those relationships. So I work with Franca Suzani, the late Franca Suzani. Then the current deputy editor-in-chief is Franca's niece, Sarah Mino.
Wow.
And
I didn't know that.
Yes, and Sarah Mino basically started Vogue Talents 10 years ago. And we started, you know, negotiating, wanted to do something together, you know, because I was like, listen, Franca is the reason why I started AFF, because she gave me the opportunity to see this creative economy as a tool for inclusive development. Franca is dead and gone, but that vision is still alive. And Sarah Mino with Vogue Talents, she's been doing exactly what, you know, Franca started as well with talents. She gives the opportunity for new and upcoming talents to be showcased in Vogue, which is great visibility.
As an upcoming for a brand that is very established in Ghana, do you see that as upcoming? I mean, on a global
scale, yes, because the thing is, even though you're established here for 10 years, you need, when you are being introduced on a platform like Vogue Talents, you're upcoming. So then other markets are seeing you for the first time. And which is what she's been doing. So we have now partnered AFF and Vogue Talents to do Vogue Talents for Africa. And now we're selecting at the end of June. We will select 8.
It's not happening for the first time.
For Africa, it's the first time. It's the first time. This is the first time for Africa. She's done Vogue Talents for India, and I believe other markets. This is the first time we're doing it for Africa.
Wow.
So it's a huge initiative, and I'm really excited that they also have seen AFF's hard work in training talent and supporting and developing talent in the fashion industry, and we're marrying those two concepts to be able to create this and take, you know, African designers to the next stage.
What happens to the final 8?
We will select one that will be showcased in Milan during Fashion Week. So there's a huge initiative that Vogue Italia is planning for the winner. But it's never going to end there for the top 8 for us. We're looking at other activities for the top 8. One of them is to do an African Fashion Week in Middle East in Dubai during the Expo 2020.
That's major.
It's huge.
The whole world is looking forward to that.
And we are going to be there. Africa is going to be, in fact, Africa is going to be the biggest show. I'm telling you. I know I'm saying Africa like it's a country, but listen, when we come together, we're too fragmented. We need to come together as one unit. We're going to disrupt the status quo, I'm telling you. So I'm really excited about that, and we're hoping to take the top 8 designers there to that show as well.
What's your philosophy in life?
You know, I always say that I'm about the 3 P's. It's always people first, the planet second, and then profit. In
I like the last one.
I know. Most people are like, oh my gosh, she needs to, you know, kind of reorient herself.
I know, right?
Profit first. No, because I feel like if you put people...
No, you need, once you put people there and you treat them right, it brings all the profits, it brings all the pluses in life.
Exactly, exactly. And it also allows you to make informed decisions. So that's my philosophy. It's always about the 3 P's, everything, the triple bottom line, I call it. All the businesses that are under our holdings kind of apply that same principle. We're venturing into other exciting things which will be unveiled in the summer. And you know, so everything is really around the 3 P's.
There's one thing I need to ask you. Your name and the fact that you've had a certain relationship with the United Nations. One would want to know, are you like Kofi Annan's niece?
I know, I get into trouble.
I'm sure you get that all the time.
I get into trouble all the time, and then there are people who are just going around saying that I have become who I am because I'm saying I'm Kofi Annan's daughter or whatever. But you know, it's
is there any connection?
So my stepfather is Rear Admiral Thomas Kwesi Annan. He was Ghana's naval commander. He is from the same family as Kofi Annan. So there is a distant relationship, and I mean, if I'm asked, I normally say that there's a distance, but it's not a close relationship. So I actually don't use that at all. So it's a people have.
I mean, I'm sure people ask. I mean, probably say that you get all these opportunities because of your relationship with them. It has
nothing to do with it.
Hard work,
nothing to do with it. It's all hard work. In fact, when I was at the UN, I got into a lot of trouble because people thought I got the job because of him. It has nothing to do with him. I did not even know the man personally. So,
Roberta, thank you so much for making time for us. I really appreciate this time with you, and all the best with what you're doing with Vogue, and especially your support for the creative industry. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep doing a good job.
We're trying hard.
Thank you.
Roberta, let me say a very big thank you to you. Thank you very much indeed for making time for us. I know how busy you are, especially when you're in Ghana, but let me ask you, this is Kwale's. What do you make of it?
I love this place. I mean, this is plush. I'm really excited to see Ghana developing in this sense, and I'm really, I mean, I am Freedom as a brother, and
own Freedom.
I mean, he's turned the city around, and it's really impressive to see, you know, an edifice like this right in the heart of. I grew up in airport, so to see this here is just unbelievable. And
I think one of the very special things about this place is the fact that it's wholly Ghanaian.
Yes. Yeah. Quite authentic, you know, and it's brand. You can feel the brand presence as well. I mean, Africa to the world, we're rich.
Right. We'll catch you next week right here on KOD Meets. A very special thank you to my very special guest, Roberta Annan. Let me call you Ambassador Roberta.
Hey, please.
For making time for us. Cheers to all the great things ahead of you.
Cheers.
Cheers to Ghana.
Cheers to Ghana.
We'll see you next week. God bless.